the unforgettable disappearance of Hailey Carmichael, Carson City, Nevada, 2001. On a cold March evening in 2001, 24-year-old Hailey Carmichael vanished without a sound from a desolate stretch of U.S. Route 50 just outside Carson City, Nevada. Her car was found with the engine still running. The driver's door is wide open, but Hailey was gone. Before we begin, I want to let you know that due to the limited visual materials and the age of this case, there isn't much existing footage or imagery to support the story you're about to hear. As a result, this episode will feature a single image as its background. Think of this as more of an immersive audio experience, a storytelling session that lets your imagination fill in the gaps. Now's the perfect time to grab your headphones, maybe even some popcorn, and settle in. Hailey Elise Carmichael was the kind of person whose absence felt like a weight in the room. A bright, intuitive young woman with a quiet disposition. She had returned home to Carson City only 6 months prior after completing her bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Oregon. She moved back in with her mother, Karen, and younger brother, Jared, into a modest one-story home tucked behind the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas. By all accounts, Hailey wasn't the sort to court attention. She didn't go out much, had a small circle of friends, and worked part-time at a veterinary clinic while taking online courses to become a licensed counselor. Her co-workers describe her as dependable, compassionate, and the kind of person who listened more than she spoke. But in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, something about Hailey had changed. Karen later told investigators that Hailey had grown increasingly withdrawn. She spent long hours alone in her room. Her sleep schedule had become erratic. More than once, Karen had woken in the middle of the night to find her daughter sitting alone on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring into the woods behind the house. When asked, Hailey would just say she couldn't sleep. There were no signs of substance use, no recent heartbreak, nothing obvious, but her demeanor had shifted. She'd stopped returning calls from a few close college friends and had canceled a short road trip to Lake Tahoe she'd been planning for months. Her mother said the final week before she vanished was the most troubling. Hailey had told her she felt like someone was following her. Karen assumed it was anxiety. Hailey had struggled with panic attacks in the past, but when pressed for details, her daughter would just shake her head and mutter something like, "It's probably nothing, just a weird feeling." March 12, 2001 was a Monday, and it was a particularly windy one. Hailey left home around 4:15 p.m., telling her mother she was going to take a quick drive to clear her head. She promised she'd be back before dinner. She never came home. At approximately 5:47 p.m., a motorist traveling eastbound on U.S. Route 50 reported a white 1997 Honda Civic pulled over on the shoulder near Devil's Gate Pass, a rugged, isolated stretch of two-lane highway bordered by high desert brush and jagged granite outcrops. The car's hazard lights were not on, but the engine was running. The driver's door was ajar. The location was odd, even for a roadside stop. That stretch of highway, often called the loneliest road in America, is known for its sparse traffic, spotty cell reception, and long, unbroken vistas of nothing but desert and sky. There are no gas stations, no diners, no homes for miles. And in March, the wind howls down the canyons hard enough to shake car doors. Nevada Highway Patrol responded at 6:28 p.m. When troopers arrived on the scene, they found Hailey's vehicle just as a motorist had described. The engine had run out of gas, but the keys were still in the ignition. Her purse was on the passenger seat, zipped shut. Inside, they found her wallet, ID, debit card, and a half-finished pack of cinnamon gum. Her phone was gone. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken glass, no drag marks, no blood, no footprints led away from the car. The terrain around the area is coarse and sandy, and wind gusts exceeding 30 miles per hour had already passed through before law enforcement arrived. The official missing persons report was filed at 7:41 p.m. under Nevada DPS case number 01-7395. WH. Search efforts began before dawn the next day, March 13th to 17th, 2001. The initial search. The early days of the investigation were intensive. Search and rescue units from Carson City and Lyon County deployed teams on foot, horseback, ATV, and aerial drones. Thermal imaging was employed at night. Cadaver dogs were brought in from Reno. Over 80 square miles were combed during the first 72 hours. Despite the scale of the operation, not a single clue was uncovered. No clothing fragments, no phone, no sign of human activity in the canyons or ravines near the highway. Interviews with Hailey's family, friends, and co-workers painted a picture of a young woman struggling with anxiety, but not one who seemed likely to vanish simply. Her phone records showed no calls or texts were made on the day she disappeared. The last outgoing message was sent the night before to a former roommate in Oregon. It read simply, "I've been having these dreams again. Same place, same feeling. Do you remember what I told you before?" The roommate told investigators she didn't know what Hailey meant. She said the two had discussed dreams in the past, but nothing alarming had occurred. Hailey had a weird imagination sometimes, she said. She always talked about this place with a tower in the desert. It was probably just symbolic. Community reaction. Carson City isn't a large town, and Hailey's disappearance hit hard. Flyers were stapled to telephone poles, storefronts, and gas station windows from Fallon to State Line. Candlelight vigils were held at the local community center. Local radio stations ran daily announcements, urging drivers on Route 50 to report anything unusual they might have seen. The case was picked up briefly by Dateline Nevada and covered briefly by the Reno Gazette-Journal, but it didn't make national headlines. There was no crime scene, no suspect, just an empty car on an empty road, and a young woman whose life had seemingly evaporated into the desert wind. A composite sketch was released based on a statement from a trucker who claimed he saw Hailey's car about 30 minutes before it was reported to police. He told investigators that he saw a woman standing behind a vehicle, looking back toward the mountains, as if she were waiting for something. He didn't stop. Nothing seemed wrong. Unanswered questions. Multiple theories were considered in the weeks following the disappearance. Voluntary disappearance. Investigators explored the possibility that Hailey had chosen to disappear. While not impossible, it didn't add up. She left behind her purse, ID, and car. No money had been withdrawn from her accounts. Her social security number was never used again. No sightings, no communication. Abduction. This theory was considered the most likely. But by whom and how? There were no tire tracks nearby other than her own. And if another vehicle were involved, it would have had to stop, snatch her, and drive off in broad daylight on a visible road, without a single eyewitness besides a passing trucker who saw nothing unusual. Mental health episode. Could Hailey have wandered off into the desert due to a mental break or dissociative episode? Investigators deemed this possible, given the recent behavior change. But the exhaustive searches, even weeks later, turned up nothing. Foul play by an acquaintance. Authorities interviewed several people close to Hailey, including a former boyfriend, co-workers, and neighbors. No one had a motive. Everyone had alibis. No forensic evidence ever linked anyone to the disappearance. Odd details that never added up. In the months that followed, 3 strange pieces of information surfaced. A local rancher reported hearing what he described as a woman screaming in the early evening of March 12th. From somewhere near the foothills west of the highway. He was riding back toward his barn around 6:15 p.m. and chalked it up to coyotes until the news broke. The sound, he said, didn't match any animal he knew. The report was never substantiated. A discarded flip phone was found 7 weeks later by hikers near Brunswick Canyon, roughly 11 miles southwest of the location of Hailey's car. It was too damaged to power on, and attempts to recover data were inconclusive. The model was the same make and year as Hailey's, but the serial number had been scratched out. No DNA was recovered. In July 2001, an unsigned postcard arrived at the veterinary clinic where Hailey worked. It was postmarked from Beatty, Nevada, nearly 300 miles south. It read simply, "She wasn't meant to stay." No handwriting match was ever found. Surveillance footage from the post office was unavailable by the time the car was traced. Investigators were never able to confirm whether it was a cruel hoax or a legitimate clue. Legacy and the lingering void. By late 2002, the case had gone cold. Nevada DPS officially suspended active investigations under the designation Unresolved/Status Unknown. Case number 01-7395. WH remains open, but no new leads have surfaced in over 2 decades. Hailey's mother still lives in the same house on the edge of town, her porch now facing a wooden bench carved with her daughter's name. Jared moved to Washington State in 2007 and rarely gives interviews. Every year on March 12th, a small group gathers near the pull-off on Route 50, where Hailey's car was found. They light candles, play Sunflowers, her favorite, and stand in silence as the sun drops behind the hills. There are no answers, only questions that stretch across the silence like power lines vanishing into the horizon. To this day, no trace of Hailey Carmichael has ever been found. March 12, 2001, a timeline of a vanishing. The morning of Monday, March 12, 2001, began like any other in Carson City. Temperatures hovered around 46 degrees Fahrenheit, with wind gusts from the west. Hailey Carmichael, 24, woke late, around 10:40 a.m. According to her mother, Karen Carmichael, Hailey had been sleeping irregularly for weeks, something her family had grown increasingly concerned about. That morning, however, she appeared unusually alert. Karen later told authorities that Hailey made a full breakfast, spent a quiet hour journaling in the kitchen, and even helped bring in groceries. She was calm, Karen said, still distant, but not like she was spiraling. If anything, it felt like she had made some kind of peace with something. At 1:05 p.m., Hailey placed a call to the Sierra Pet Clinic, where she worked part-time as a receptionist. She spoke with her supervisor, telling her she wouldn't be coming in for a 3 to 7 p.m. shift. Her voice was described as composed but flat. She did not explain. That marked the last verifiable phone conversation Hailey Carmichael ever had. At 3:49 p.m., she was seen on CCTV footage at a Shell gas station on South Carson Street. She purchased a bottle of water and filled her tank with $12.17 worth of unleaded fuel. Surveillance revealed that no one else was in the car, and there was no sign of distress. She did not speak to anyone except the cashier, who recalled her as polite but distracted. 4:17 p.m., the last time she was seen. At approximately 4:17 p.m., Hailey left the family's residence on Sandstone Drive, telling her mother she was going for a drive to clear her head. Karen pressed gently, but Hailey offered no details. She left her house wearing a charcoal gray windbreaker, jeans, and tan hiking shoes. Her hair was pulled back in a low ponytail. She took only her phone and keys. Her purse remained behind. Around 4:42 p.m., an employee at the Carson River trailhead reported seeing a white Honda Civic matching Hailey's driving east toward U.S. Route 50. The witness couldn't identify the driver, but noted the vehicle slowed near the entrance to Brunswick Canyon before continuing eastbound. By 5:08 p.m., another vehicle, a red Chevy Suburban, passed a white Civic parked on the shoulder near Devil's Gate Pass. The driver, Darren Mullins, a local truck driver, later told police that he saw a young woman standing behind the vehicle, facing away from the road, staring toward the ridgeline. She didn't wave, didn't move, just stood there. I figured she was taking a break or having car trouble. 5:47 p.m., the 911 call. At 5:47 p.m., a passing motorist called 911 to report what appeared to be an abandoned vehicle. The dispatcher noted the report as VER, disabled/driver missing, US 50-mile marker 228. The caller stated that the engine was running and the driver's side door was open, but there was no one around. There were no other vehicles in the area. Nevada Highway Patrol Trooper Leonard Davis was dispatched at 5:53 p.m. and arrived on the scene at approximately 6:28 p.m. By that point, the sun had dipped behind the hills and temperatures were falling fast. The scene, initial findings. Hailey's 1997 white Honda Civic was found pulled over neatly on the eastbound shoulder. The car was in park, the ignition was engaged, and the headlights were still on. The engine had stalled, likely out of fuel. The driver's side door was wide open. Her cell phone was missing, but her purse was on the passenger seat, zipped and untouched. Inside, wallet with ID, debit card, and $38 cash. House keys on a green lanyard. A small sketch pad containing abstract drawings and one phrase scribbled repeatedly. I thought I'd know when it came. No signs of a struggle were visible. No blood, no torn clothing, no drag marks. The sandy soil surrounding the vehicle showed only one set of boot prints, likely Hailey's, leading around the back of the car. The prints ended abruptly just 10 feet away. Trooper Davis radio dispatch at 6:33 p.m., confirming female vehicle owner not present. No immediate sign of distress, but the subject is missing. Request backup and SAR coordination. 6:55 p.m., family notified. Karen Carmichael was contacted by Carson City PD at 6:55 p.m. and informed that her daughter's car had been found abandoned. She reportedly collapsed to her knees when the officer said Hailey wasn't at the scene. She would never just walk off like that, Karen told investigators later. Not at night, not in the middle of nowhere. Something happened out there. By 7:41 p.m., a formal missing persons report was filed on Nevada DPS case number 01-7395, WH. Hailey Carmichael was officially listed as missing under suspicious circumstances. The search effort, March 13th to March 20th. Within 12 hours of the report, a large-scale search effort was initiated. Carson City SAR, Lyon County SAR, and Nevada National Guard deployed ground teams. Aerial support was provided by NHP helicopters equipped with thermal imaging. K-9 units from the Reno PD were brought in. Search radius, 20 miles, expanding to 50 over 3 days. Terrain, rocky desert canyons, sagebrush flats, dry creeks. Despite exhaustive efforts, no physical trace of Hailey was found. No clothing, no phone, no human remains. Strong winds, fluctuating temperatures, and rugged terrain made the search conditions even more complicated. SAR teams noted that the environment could easily obscure evidence. A dust storm passed through the area on March 14th, likely disturbing potential trace clues. Physical evidence, sparse and frustrating. Investigators had little to work with. Vehicle, no fingerprints beyond Hailey's. No DNA from unknown persons. No sign of forced entry or mechanical failure. Phone missing. A damaged flip phone was later found in Brunswick Canyon 7 weeks later, but could not be conclusively linked to Hailey. Sketchpad. Phrases repeated inside hinted at psychological distress, but no references to specific people or events. The only semi-substantive lead came from Darren Mullins, the truck driver, who provided a vague but sincere statement about seeing someone near the car. A forensic sketch based on his description was inconclusive, resembling Hailey but too generic to confirm. Red herring number 1, the alleged sighting in Fallon. On March 15, 2001, a woman matching Hailey's description was reportedly seen at a Shell station in Fallon, Nevada, approximately 60 miles east of where her car was found. The witness, a gas station attendant, claimed the woman appeared dazed and looked like she hadn't slept in days. Security footage from that day was inconclusive. The timestamp failed to match the reported time, and the woman in the footage, while similar in build, was ultimately identified as another resident passing through town. Red herring number 2, the ex-boyfriend theory. Early media attention fixated briefly on a former boyfriend, Mark Ledoux, who had dated Hailey during college in Eugene. Rumors circulated that the relationship ended poorly and that he had recently reached out via email. Investigators followed up. Ledoux provided emails showing brief, cordial exchanges. He had been working in Portland, Oregon, on the day of Hailey's disappearance, with verified security badge logs and witness testimony to support his alibi. He was officially cleared. Public and media reaction. The local community responded with urgency and heartbreak. Within days, vigils were held across Carson City. Flyers were posted from Reno to Ely. NHP established a hotline for anonymous tips. Local stations KCCM 5 and KRNB ran daily updates for the first 2 weeks. The Reno Gazette-Journal published 3 front-page stories in March, with headlines such as, "Desert Silence. The search for Hailey Carmichael continues. No trace, no answers. Family pleads for help." The case was profiled on a regional segment of Dateline Nevada on April 7, 2001. The segment yielded a small spike in tips, but it was not actionable. National interest quickly waned. Theories and rumors. Despite the lack of evidence, theories circulated, some plausible, others bordering on myth. Voluntary disappearance. Some theorized Hailey had suffered a mental breakdown and wandered into the desert. Her family rejected this firmly. Even if she was scared, Karen said, she wouldn't just vanish. She would have called. She always called. Random abduction. The most common theory suggests that someone, possibly another motorist, stopped and lured or forced Hailey into a vehicle. But how and why, with no sign of a struggle? Supernatural or cult activity? Whispers circulated in the weeks following the discovery of the sketch pad that Hailey had become involved in some spiritual group or dream-related cult. No credible evidence ever supported these claims. The postcard. In July 2001, a mysterious postcard arrived at Hailey's former workplace. It was postmarked from Beatty, Nevada, and contained no return address. The message read, "She wasn't meant to stay." Handwriting analysis yielded no match. The origin was never traced. The emotional toll. By September 2001, the Carmichael family had nearly exhausted all their resources. Karen remained adamant. She didn't just vanish. Someone took her, and someone knows. Her brother Jared, then 19, withdrew from college. "I feel like we're still in that moment," he said during an interview in 2002. That night, the headlights are on, the wind is blowing, and she's just gone. A vanishing with no echo. As of early 2003, the case was downgraded to inactive/open status. The lead detective, Sergeant Paul Ramirez, transferred to a different division later that year. In his final interview on the case, he said, "It's like she walked off the edge of the earth. We always expect something, anything, to turn up. This one stays with you." But just when it seemed like the case had faded from memory, a new clue would surface, one buried in the very dust that first concealed her. It's been over 2 decades since 24-year-old Hailey Carmichael stepped out of her white Honda Civic on the side of US Route 50 and vanished without a trace. Despite a multi-agency investigation, countless search operations, and years of unanswered questions, the mystery of her disappearance has never been resolved. What remains are theories, speculative, conflicting, and chilling. Each one tells a different story, yet none holds a final answer. What follows is a systematic breakdown of the most enduring possibilities, grounded in investigative timelines, witness statements, psychological profiles, and fragments of evidence. The abduction theory. Working theory number 1, stranger intervention. This remains the most widely held assumption among law enforcement and the public alike, that Hailey Carmichael was the victim of a targeted or opportunistic abduction. The timing, location, and details surrounding her disappearance support this possibility. The abandoned vehicle was left running on a deserted stretch of highway. No defensive wounds, no sign of a struggle, but a rapid disappearance. Single set of footprints leading away from the car and stopping abruptly, as if she had stepped into another vehicle or been carried off. Detective Mark Eden, who reviewed the cold case in 2009, noted, the absence of physical evidence doesn't rule out abduction. In some cases, it suggests a high degree of control by the perpetrator. Whoever did this, if it was foul play, they were in and out fast. The location where a car was found, Devil's Gate Pass, is a remote stretch known for low traffic, blind curves, and poor reception. A predator could have followed her or happened upon her with little chance of being seen. However, the theory also has weaknesses. No credible eyewitnesses reported seeing another vehicle parked near hers during the relevant time frame. No forensic evidence, no fingerprints, fibers, or tire tracks was recovered to indicate a second party. No suspects have ever emerged. Some theorists believe she may have hitchhiked after running out of fuel. However, her fuel tank was over half full at the Shell station earlier that day. The fact that the engine was still running when found suggests she didn't plan to leave the vehicle for an extended period. Still, as one SAR coordinator remarked, if someone wanted to make her disappear in the Nevada desert, they couldn't have picked a better place. 2. The voluntary disappearance theory. Working theory number 2, a planned escape or psychological break. Less popular, but not implausible. is the theory that Hailey staged her disappearance or experienced a psychological break, leading her to vanish into the wilderness intentionally. Supporting points include her sketchpad contained disturbing repetitive phrases. "I thought I'd know when it came." Family noted her erratic sleeping habits, emotional withdrawal, and preoccupation with dreams in the weeks before her disappearance. She called off work the day she vanished without providing a reason, unusual for someone considered reliable by her employer. Some pointed to Hailey's long-standing habit of journaling and isolating herself during periods of personal reflection. Her brother Jared remembered one summer when she camped alone for 3 nights in Humboldt-Toyabe National Forest after a breakup. Could she have walked off into the hills intentionally? Possibly. But if so, where did she go? Despite hundreds of volunteer hours and a 50-mile ground and aerial sweep, not a single trace was ever found. Not even her phone, jacket, or shoe. Voluntary disappearances do happen, but they're rarely this seamless. Even in cases of suicide, bodies or belongings are typically found within the first year. But with Hailey, the desert offered up nothing. 3. The environmental or natural cause theory. Working theory number 3. Disorientation or exposure. Some believe the most straightforward explanation may also be the most tragic, that Hailey wandered from her car and succumbed to the elements. The terrain near Devil's Gate Pass is deceptive. What appears flat from the roadside quickly gives way to narrow gullies, sudden drop-offs, and crumbling shale embankments. If Hailey had ventured off the highway, either intentionally or in confusion, she could have fallen, gotten injured, or collapsed from exposure. SAR teams noted dangerous vertical features and deep crevices where a body could remain hidden for an indefinite period. However, 2 factors weaken this theory. No scent trail was ever picked up by cadaver dogs, even within the first 48 hours. Her footprints ended abruptly, not meandering off into the wild, but stopping cleanly, just 10 feet behind the vehicle. One expert tracker suggested, if she wandered, she did so with no hesitation. But the absence of a trail sign says otherwise. It's like the earth swallowed her. This theory does explain the silence. No crime, no conspiracy, just a cruel misstep in an unforgiving landscape. 4. The supernatural or paranormal twist. Working theory number 4, something else entirely. While most investigators discard outright, some locals and internet forums have explored the possibility of something stranger. Carson City sits on the edge of several Native American sacred sites, and Devil's Gate Pass has a long oral history of eerie occurrences. Lights in the hills, voices on the wind, animals avoiding the pass for no discernible reason. In late 2002, a hiker named Lucas Brennan reported a strange acoustic anomaly while hiking the area where Hailey vanished. His GPS and compass malfunctioned for 90 minutes, and he described hearing distant laughter that faded into silence. No physical evidence backs these claims, but they fuel the following: threads on Reddit, obscure YouTube documentaries, even late-night radio segments have dubbed Hailey's case the vanishing at Devil's Gate. Critics argue that such interpretations disrespect the family's grief. Karen Carmichael never spoke publicly on such theories, but once commented, "I believe something real happened to Hailey. Something human. But I understand why people want to believe otherwise." The truth is, sometimes reality is more terrifying than fiction. Later developments and lingering questions. In 2006, a retired detective from Washoe County reached out with a theory tying Hailey's disappearance to 2 other missing women, both of whom vanished along remote highways in the greater Nevada region between 1999 and 2003. The MMOs were similar. Young women, no history of mental illness, vehicles left intact, disappearances occurring near dusk. The so-called high desert vanishings theory gained little traction, but was never officially ruled out. In 2007, an FBI regional task force reviewed the files, but was unable to find sufficient commonalities to connect the cases formally. Where things stand today. As of 2025, Hailey Carmichael remains listed in the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System (NAMUS) Missing Persons Database. Her family maintains an online memorial, last updated in 2021, marking the 20th anniversary of her disappearance. A portion of U.S. Route 50 near Devil's Gate Pass has since been designated as a missing persons alert corridor, following multiple cases of disappearances in the region. Hailey would be 48 years old today. The disappearance of Hailey Carmichael is a haunting reminder of how easily someone can slip through the cracks of reality. Despite an extensive investigation, technological advances, and 2 decades of speculation, no conclusive evidence has ever surfaced. There is no grave, no confirmed sighting, nobody, only a car left idling in the desert wind, and the question echoing across the Nevada dust. What happened to Hailey Carmichael? Was it a tragic accident, a carefully executed abduction, or something far stranger than anyone is willing to admit? What do you think happened to Hailey Carmichael? Was it a tragic accident or something far more sinister? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel for more content relating to horrors and missing cases.